So in this video, I'm going to attempt to drill down into the question of what is Game B. It seems to me like this Game B key concept series is not complete without an attempt to do that. So um, a couple of qualifications though before I get started. First of all, let me just be clear that this is not any kind of official Game B position, right? I mean, such a thing would be a logical absurdity anyway. But just to be clear, this is just me talking, right? Secondly, I'm not actually going to answer the question, what is Game B? Let me also say that up front. I guess more what I'm going to be answering is the question of why is it impossible to answer the question of what is Game B, something like that. It's also worth highlighting kind of a paradox about this in that on the one hand, Game B is this brand new thing, right? I mean, we've been doing Game A for 12,000 years or whatever, and Game B is this brand new thing. But at the same time, Game B is and always has been going on, right? The rest of the world is playing Game B. It's just us stuck in Game A, right? Every ecosystem, every level of organization in nature is already playing Game B. So in a very real sense, Game B doesn't need to be designed and constructed. It just needs to be allowed to happen, sort of thing. We just need to get out of the way and let it happen. I think one thing which is probably fair to say about Game B is it'll figure out a way to close all of its loops. Nature closes all of her loops, and so Game B will somehow or other figure out a way to extract from nature in such a way as not to debase her, and then to reinsert our waste into nature in such a way that she can process it well. The first part of the answer to the question, why is it impossible to talk about Game B, or why is it impossible to say what is Game B, is that it is a whole new thing. I mean, it's a completely different thing. It is a fundamentally, ontologically different way of organizing society and going about doing things. And so, given that we are running Game A code and are stuck with Game A cognitive architecture, it is almost impossible to see Game B from our current vantage point. The best we can ever hope for is to get like a fleeting glimpse of what it might feel like.
There was once a dream that was Rome. You could only whisper it. Anything more than a whisper, and it would vanish. It was so fragile.
There, that feeling right there, that's probably as close as we can get to understanding what Game B is. And as soon as, even when you do get that embodied sense, as soon as you try and trap it in the restraints of language, it's gone again, right? Because language is essentially code, right? It's lines and lines and lines of linear code. And we process that at the reason level, at what John Vervaeke would call the propositional level. And Game A resides entirely almost in the propositional layer, and it neglects almost completely the perspectival, the participatory, and the procedural levels of knowing. And so Game B is going to somehow figure out a way to reincorporate that much more embodied sense of knowing in the world. I mean, Game B is going to have to solve all of the same problems that Game A solves, right? It's going to have to solve the problem of how can large numbers of people collaborate with each other. It's going to have to solve the problems of feeding everyone, clothing everyone, housing everyone, distributing water, distributing energy, distributing other resources, all of that kind of stuff. It's also going to have to solve the problems of how can people actually find meaning and fulfillment and purpose and a sense of, place and being well held by the society in their lives. Game A has failed in many ways to solve those kinds of problems. And it also has to solve all of these problems without producing all of the externalities that Game A produces. The corruption, the pollution, the in-group, out-group, the conflict, all of that kind of stuff. So Game B is going to have to solve the same set of problems that Game A solves, plus a larger set of problems, plus without producing all of the externalities. And so you start to get some idea of just how far beyond the parameters of Game A, Game B must be. And of course, there's going to be new needs and new wants emerge as the society evolves and gets more complex. And Game B has to be able to accommodate that as well without breaking. And so if Game A is a march, right, getting from one place to the next place to the next place to the next place, setting a goal and going for it, setting a goal and going for it. So if Game A is a march, then Game B is a dance. It's not about setting a goal and reaching it. It's about a holistic, interactive expansion of capacity in a complete and whole manner. And so, you can see I'm stumbling over my words here because I'm trying to get across something which A, I haven't fully conceptualized myself, and B, which is unget acrossable in language anyway. And so somehow or other, Game B is going to bring together all of those needs which need to be met in the context of the reality of living in nature, and with elegance and with beauty and with um, fully conscious participation, will bring all of that together in harmonious relationship. This is why it's a dance. It's not a march, it's a dance. It's forever changing, forever responsive to the changing needs and the changing circumstances and the changing environment and so on. So yeah, that's I hope some sense of why it is so very difficult to answer the question. One final thing is, if it's impossible to answer the question of Game B, is then what the hell are we all doing talking about Game B, right? I mean, if it's impossible to design, if it's impossible to make it, then what the hell are we doing here? And that's a very reasonable question. In order to attempt to answer that, I'm going to, as I so often do, fall back on an analogy that Jordan Hall uses, namely that of a human baby, right? And so when two parents bring a baby into the world, the baby is analogous to Game B, right? Brought into the world on its own without a space in which to develop. That the zygote has absolutely no chance of surviving in the outside world. In a like manner, little pockets of Game B that spring into the world are very, very quickly stamped out by Game A. They're either co-opted or bought or whatever, and they disappear very quickly. And so what we in the Game B community, if you like, and I'm more and more hating the name, by the way, but anyway, that's another story. What all we can be doing is create a womb, if you like, for that zygote to develop safely in. And so that's what I think the role of Game Bers should be, is humbly acknowledging that they don't know what the fuck Game B is, don't know what it looks like, and rather, in the same way that parents are completely in service to the unborn baby, right? They have no idea what's going on in the womb there. They simply provide a safe environment, or mother, I guess, provides a safe environment for the zygote to develop in. And then once it emerges into the world, once again, it is helpless, right? It can't do anything on its own. It requires help and support, but it has to also develop into its own thing, right? It can't be directed. It can't be told what it must be. It must be what it will be. So yeah, on the one hand, it's ferociously protecting it, but on the other hand, it is absolutely standing back and letting it be what it will be with the minimum of interference. And that, I feel, is the best that we can do. And in order to do that, we need to, on an individual level, expand our own capacities and our own ability to experience the world in a more embodied and less in our heads kind of way. We need to keep networking and forming relationships and coming up with ideas, and then just release all that and let Game B, whatever it's going to be, develop on its own. I mean, it's going to be this whole, seems to me to be a little pretty low probability thing, but it's going to be all of this stuff, all of these ideas, all of these networks, all of these people, all of these ideas, all of this stuff just swimming around, swimming around, swimming around. And then one day, possibly, maybe, it's all going to ka-chink come together, and Game B is locked in, right? So that's it, really. As Game B is both miles and miles away over the horizon, but it's also, right here, right in front of our faces. So let's hope that it clicks into place one day and in the not too distant future. And yeah, keep playing. Thanks for watching. Bye.